The sound of the front door open. David's voice called out, "Sorry I'm late." Traffic was insane. He appeared in the doorway of my living room, still in his work clothes, looking slightly frazzled. And he was holding Sarah's purse. My best friend. The room got very quiet. Not completely silent, but quiet enough that everyone noticed the small black leather bag in David's hand. Sarah's face went white. David looked down at the purse, then up at Sarah, then around the room at all the faces staring at him. You know that feeling when your entire world tilts sideways in a single moment? When everything you thought you knew becomes a lie so complete it makes you question your own memories? I'm sitting here now, 3 months later, still tasting the sweetness of that night. Still feeling the weight of justice settling into my bones like warm honey. But to understand why what happened at my birthday party felt like the best gift I ever gave myself, you need to know how deep the betrayal ran. How carefully they built their web of lies around me. How completely I trusted the two people who were systematically destroying my life from the inside out. My name is Maya. And this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the most devastating revenge isn't screaming or breaking things. Sometimes it's just letting the truth breathe in a room full of people who love you. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from, and if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe, it helps support our channel. Enjoy listening. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. I was making coffee in our kitchen, the kitchen I'd painted sage green because David said it reminded him of his grandmother's house. The kitchen where I'd hung photos of us from 5 years together. David and me at his brother's wedding. David and me on vacation in Portland. David and me and Sarah at New Year's Eve, her arms wrapped around both of us, the three of us laughing at something I can't even remember now. Sarah. My best friend since college. The woman who held my hair back when I had food poisoning. Who helped me pick out the dress I wore on my first date with David. Who knew every secret I'd ever had, every fear, every dream. I heard David's phone buzz on the counter. He was in the shower, getting ready for work. The screen lit up with a text preview. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about. The sender's name made my coffee cup slip. Just slightly. Just enough that hot liquid splashed over my thumb. Sarah. I stood there, thumb burning, staring at that preview. My brain did what brains do when they can't process something. It made excuses. Maybe they were planning something for my birthday next month. Maybe Sarah was seeing someone new and telling David about it. Maybe there was some perfectly innocent explanation for why my best friend was texting my boyfriend about something incredible at 6 in the morning. I didn't touch his phone. I want you to understand that. For 3 weeks, I didn't touch his phone, didn't snoop, didn't demand explanations. I just watched. I watched David get jumpy when his phone buzzed. I watched him angle it away from me when he typed. I watched him suggest we cancel our regular Friday night dinners with Sarah. She's been weird lately, he said, not looking at me as he said it. Kind of clingy. I think she might be going through something. The funny thing about being betrayed by the two people you trust most is how it makes you question everything. Every smile, every hug, every I love you becomes suspect. When did it start? How long had they been lying to my face? Were they laughing about me when I left the room? I started noticing things. How Sarah's eyes would dart to David when she thought I wasn't looking. How David would find excuses to run errands when he knew Sarah was coming over. How they both got quiet when I mentioned plans for my birthday party. You know, Sarah said one evening as we painted our nails on my couch, maybe you should keep it small this year. Just close friends. But I love big parties, I said. You know that. Remember my 25th? We invited everyone. That was different. She focused intently on her left pinky nail. We were younger then. People change. People change. Such a simple statement. Such a loaded truth. The second crack came 3 weeks later, and it split everything wide open. I was at work, teaching my fourth grade class about fractions, when my phone rang. It was my landlord, Mr. Chen. He'd been nothing but kind to David and me for 2 years. "Maya," he said, his voice careful. "I need to talk to you about the rent." My stomach dropped. We'd never been late. "David handled the finances because he was better with numbers," he said. "Because he made more money. Because I was too trusting, too scattered, too much of an artist to deal with practical things." "What about the rent?" I asked, stepping into the hallway outside my classroom. "You're 3 months behind." I've been trying to reach David, but he hasn't returned my calls. 3 months. 3 months of rent money that had disappeared somewhere between David's promises and my bank account. "That's impossible," I said. "I give David my half every month. He pays it." The silence on the other end stretched too long. "Maya," Mr. Chin said gently, "I think you and I need to sit down and talk." That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick and drove to David's office. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to find the courage to walk inside and ask him about the money. But I couldn't do it. Because asking meant admitting I didn't trust him. And if I didn't trust him, what did that make me? Instead, I drove to Sarah's apartment. She was home, which was unusual for a Wednesday afternoon. She worked at a marketing firm downtown and rarely got off before 6. But there she was, in her pajamas at 3 p.m., looking like she'd been crying. "Maya." She wiped her face quickly. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Chen called," I said. "We're behind on rent." Something flickered across her face. Relief? Guilt? It happened too fast for me to be sure. "Oh, honey." She pulled me inside, wrapped her arms around me. "I'm sure it's just a mistake. David's probably just been busy." Her apartment smelled different. Like cologne that wasn't hers. Like David's cologne. I pulled back from the hug and looked around. There was a coffee mug on her table that I recognized. David's favorite mug. The one with the chip on the handle that he refused to throw away. "Sarah," I said slowly, "whose mug is that?" She followed my gaze and her face went pale. David stopped by this morning. To drop off." She trailed off, looking panicked. "To drop off what?" "Nothing. Just, nothing important." I walked to her kitchen counter. Next to the mug was a receipt from the hardware store. For paint. The exact shade of blue David and I had been talking about for our bedroom. The paint we couldn't afford because, apparently, we were 3 months behind on rent. "Sarah." My voice was very quiet. "Tell me the truth." She started crying again. Not the pretty kind of crying that makes people want to comfort you. The ugly, desperate kind that comes from a place too deep for pretense. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't tell you." "Why?" "Because it will destroy everything." I stood there in her kitchen, looking at my best friend's face. And felt something inside me break clean in half. Not shatter. Just break. Like a bone that snaps under too much pressure. "It's already destroyed," I said. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I went home and did what any rational person would do when their world was falling apart. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried until my throat was raw. Then I got up, washed my face, and started planning my birthday party. The party I'd been excited about for months. The party Sarah kept trying to talk me out of. The party that was now going to serve a very different purpose than celebration. I sent invitations to everyone. My work friends. My college friends. My family. David's brother and sister-in-law. Sarah's coworkers. Everyone who knew us as a couple, who knew Sarah and me as best friends. Everyone who thought they knew our story. When David asked about the guest list, I smiled and handed him the stack of invitations. "Wow," he said, flipping through them. "This is a lot of people." I want everyone there, I said. All the people who matter to us. He shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should talk about the budget. Don't worry about money, I said. I've got it covered. I did have it covered. Because I'd opened my own bank account that week. Because I'd moved my paychecks there. Because I'd finally done what I should have done years ago and taken control of my own finances. The money David had been taking wasn't just rent money. It was everything. My car payment. My credit card bills. My student loans. He'd been using my money to fund whatever life he was building with Sarah while letting me believe we were broke. But I didn't know that yet. That revelation was still coming. 2 weeks before my birthday, I found the apartment. I was driving to the grocery store when I saw David's car parked outside a complex across town. Not just parked. Parked in a designated spot with a number on it. Parked like he belonged there. I pulled over and sat in my car, watching. After 20 minutes, David came out of the building. He wasn't alone. Sarah was with him. She was carrying a bag of groceries and laughing at something he'd said. They looked comfortable. Like a couple who'd been together for years. Like people who shared a space and a life and secrets. They looked like David and I used to look. I followed them back to the building and waited until they went inside. Then I walked to the mailboxes in the lobby. Unit 4B. David Morrison and Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen. She'd changed her name. Or maybe she'd never changed it back after her divorce 3 years ago. The divorce I'd held her hand through. The divorce where she'd cried about being alone and starting over. Sarah Chen, who was apparently not alone at all. I stood in that lobby for a long time, reading their names on the mailbox. Trying to understand the scope of what they'd done. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a life. A whole life they'd built together while keeping me as, what? A friend? A cover story? A source of income? That night, I called my sister Emma. I need a favor, I said without preamble. Maya? What's wrong? You sound weird. I need you to help me with something. Something that might seem crazy. Emma had never liked David. She'd been polite about it, but I'd always sensed her disapproval. Now I wondered if she'd seen something I'd missed. What kind of favor? She asked carefully. I need you to help me get into David's email. There was a long pause. Maya. Emma, please. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Another pause. Then, what did he do? I told her everything. The rent. The apartment. Sarah's name on the mailbox. My voice stayed steady until I got to the part about the mailbox, and then it cracked. Oh, honey, Emma said softly. I'm so sorry. Will you help me? Yes. But first, we're going to do this right. We're going to document everything. And then we're going to make sure you come out of this okay. Emma worked in IT. She knew about digital footprints and evidence and protecting yourself when the people closest to you turned out to be strangers. She came over the next day with her laptop and a plan. We're not doing anything illegal, she said as she sat up. We're just going to recover your own information. Your financial records. Your credit report. Things that belong to you. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. David hadn't just been taking my money. He'd been using my credit to finance his double life. The apartment he shared with Sarah was leased under my name. The car he drove to see her was financed with my credit. Even their utilities were in my name. I was paying for my own betrayal. Literally. But Emma found something else. Something that made my hands shake as I read it. Email threads between David and Sarah going back 2 years. Not just about logistics or secret meetings. About me. David, she asked about the rent again today. I told her work has been slow. Sarah, you need to be more careful. She's not stupid. David, she trusts me. That's the difference between her and you. You always assume the worst about people. Sarah, maybe that's why I'm not the one being lied to. David, ouch. Fair point. How much longer do you think we can keep this up? Sarah, until we figure out what we want. She deserves better than this limbo, David. David, I know. I just need more time. Sarah, time for what? To decide between us? Because that's not fair to any of us. David, time to figure out how to do this without destroying her completely. I read that exchange 17 times. I read it until the words burned themselves into my memory. They knew. They both knew what they were doing to me, and they'd been discussing it like a problem to be solved. Like I was a problem to be solved. But there was something else in those emails. Something that made me sit back and really think about what I was seeing. Sarah, I hate this. I hate lying to her. She's my best friend. David, then why are we doing it? Sarah, you know why. David, because we fell in love. But loving each other doesn't have to mean hurting her. Sarah, doesn't it? How do we be together without destroying the most important friendship in my life? David, maybe we can't. Maybe that's the price. Sarah, I'm not sure I'm willing to pay it. David, then what are you saying? Sarah, I'm saying maybe we need to tell her. Soon. David, at her birthday party? Sarah, God, no. That would be cruel. David, when then? Sarah, I don't know. But I can't keep pretending. Every time I see her, I feel like I'm going to be sick. I stared at that last message for a long time. Sarah felt sick lying to me. But not sick enough to stop. Emma was watching me read, her face full of concern. Maya? What is it? They're planning to tell me at the party, I said. What? Not exactly at the party. But around that time. They're trying to figure out how. Emma leaned over to read the messages. Her face got darker as she scrolled. Those bastards, she said quietly. They're talking about you like you're a business transaction. No, I said slowly. They're not. Emma looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maya, did we read the same emails? They feel guilty, I said. Look at what Sarah's saying. She hates lying to me. She's conflicted. So? That doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it better, I agreed. But it makes it different. I was starting to understand something. This wasn't just betrayal. This was complicated, messy, human betrayal. The kind where people do terrible things while still caring about the person they're hurting. The kind where everyone gets destroyed, including the people doing the destroying. That didn't make it forgivable. But it made it knowable. And if I knew them, really knew them, then I could predict them. I spent the next week preparing for my birthday party like I was preparing for war. But not the kind of war with screaming and throwing things. The kind of war where strategy matters more than strength. I made lists. I planned conversations. I thought through every possible reaction and prepared for each one. Most importantly, I made copies of everything. The emails. The financial records. The lease agreement with both their names on it. Emma helped me organize it all into neat folders, both digital and physical. What exactly are you planning to do with all this? She asked as we sat in her living room, surrounded by printouts. I'm going to tell the truth, I said. At your party? At my party. Emma frowned. Maya, I know you're hurt. But humiliating them in front of everyone isn't going to make you feel better. I'm not trying to humiliate them, I said. I'm trying to free myself. What does that mean? I'd been thinking about this question for days now. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? An apology? Do you know what the worst part of all this is? I asked Emma. The lying? The isolation. I leaned back against her couch cushions. 4 months, I've been feeling crazy. Like I was imagining things. Like I was paranoid and jealous and suspicious for no reason. They made me doubt my own perceptions. Emma nodded slowly. Everyone at that party thinks they know our story, I continued. They think David and I are happy. They think Sarah and I are best friends. They think we're all just normal people living normal lives. But you're not. No. We're not. And I'm tired of pretending we are. The night before my party, I couldn't sleep. I kept rehearsing what I was going to say, how I was going to say it. I kept imagining everyone's faces when they realized what had been happening. But mostly, I kept thinking about Sarah's words in those emails. She's my best friend. I hate lying to her. Part of me wanted to believe that meant something. Part of me wanted to think that our friendship had been real, even if everything else was fake. The rational part of me knew better. But the heart doesn't always listen to the rational part. At 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went to my kitchen. I made coffee and sat at my table, looking at the stack of party supplies I'd bought. Balloons. Streamers. A banner that said, "Happy birthday, Maya." In 12 hours, my life was going to change completely. In 12 hours, everyone I cared about was going to know the truth about the last 2 years of my life. I thought about calling it off. I thought about confronting David and Sarah privately, like a normal person would do. I thought about just leaving, just packing my things and starting over somewhere else. But I didn't want to be the person who disappeared quietly. I didn't want to be the person who absorbed this betrayal in silence and carried the weight of their secrets. I wanted to be the person who stood up and said, "This happened to me. This is real. And I deserve better." My birthday party was supposed to start at 7. By 6:30, my apartment was decorated and ready. Emma had come early to help, and she kept shooting me worried looks as I arranged snacks and checked the music playlist. "You sure about this?" she asked for the 10th time. "I'm sure. Because we could still." "Emma." I turned to face her. "I need to do this." She nodded reluctantly. "Okay. But I'm staying close." The first guests started arriving at 7:15. My work friends came together, bearing wine and flowers. My college roommate Lisa came with her husband. David's brother Mark arrived with his wife Jennifer, looking slightly uncomfortable the way people do when they're not sure about the social dynamics. Everyone was laughing and chatting, complimenting my decorations, asking about my birthday plans for the weekend. Normal party conversation. Normal party energy. I smiled and played hostess and tried not to watch the door. Sarah arrived at 7:45. She looked beautiful, the way she always did. She was carrying a gift bag and wearing the earrings I'd given her for Christmas. She hugged me tight and whispered, "Happy birthday, sweetie," in my ear. For a moment, standing there in her arms, I almost lost my nerve. This was Sarah. Sarah who'd driven 4 hours to be with me when my dad was in the hospital. Sarah who'd helped me move 3 times without complaining. Sarah who knew me better than anyone. How do you destroy someone who's been that important to you? But then I remembered the emails. The apartment. David's mug in her kitchen. "Thank you for being here," I said when she pulled back from the hug. "Of course. Where's David?" Good question. It was almost 8 o'clock, and my boyfriend hadn't shown up to my birthday party yet. "He'll be here soon," I said. "You know how he is." Sarah nodded, but something flickered in her eyes. Worry? Guilt? At 8:15, I gathered everyone in the living room. "I want to thank you all for being here," I said, raising my wine glass. "It means so much to have everyone I love in one place." There was a chorus of "Happy birthday," and people raised their glasses. "David should be here any minute," I continued. "He's just running a little late." That's when I heard his key in the lock. The sound of the front door opening. David's voice calling out, "Sorry I'm late." Traffic was insane. He appeared in the doorway of my living room, still in his work clothes, looking slightly frazzled. And he was holding Sarah's purse. The room got very quiet. Not completely silent, but quiet enough that everyone noticed the small black leather bag in David's hand. Sarah's face went white. David looked down at the purse, then up at Sarah, then around the room at all the faces staring at him. He started to say. Oh, Sarah said quickly, moving toward him. You grabbed my purse by mistake. I left it in your. She stopped mid-sentence, realizing what she'd almost said. Left it in your what, Sarah? Your car? Your office? Your shared apartment? The silence stretched out. 23 people in my living room, all watching this little drama unfold, not quite understanding what they were seeing but sensing that something was very wrong. David handed Sarah her purse without looking at her. His eyes found mine across the room. Maya, he said. Can we talk? Actually, I said, I think we should all talk. I set my wine glass down on the coffee table and looked around the room at all the faces. Some confused, some starting to understand, all focused on me. Before we continue with the party, I said, there's something I need to tell everyone. Emma moved closer to me. I could feel her presence like an anchor. Maya, David started. Please don't, I said quietly. Please don't say anything yet. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Emma had helped me create. Screenshots. Photos. Documents. Everything organized and ready. 2 months ago, I found out that David and Sarah have been living together in an apartment across town. An apartment that's leased under my name, paid for with my credit, furnished with my money that I thought was going to our shared expenses. The silence in the room was complete now. Not even the sound of breathing. They've been together for at least 2 years. Probably longer. They've built an entire life together while maintaining their relationships with me. David as my boyfriend. Sarah as my best friend. I looked directly at Sarah. Her face was wet with tears. I have emails between them discussing how to handle me. How to manage me. How to eventually tell me the truth in a way that would not destroy me completely. Mark, David's brother, was staring at David with a look of complete shock. Maya, stop, David said. His voice was strained. This isn't how you wanted to tell everyone? I asked. How were you planning to do it, David? Were you going to wait until after we cut the cake? Were you going to take me aside privately and explain that you've been living a double life for 2 years? Lisa, my college roommate, was looking back and forth between Sarah and David like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Sarah, she said slowly. Is this true? Sarah nodded, still crying. Yes, she whispered. Oh my God, Lisa said. I kept going. I had to keep going now. The reason I'm telling all of you this, the reason I'm not handling this privately, is because they made me feel insane. For months, I thought I was imagining things. I thought I was paranoid. I thought I was the problem. My voice was steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. But I wasn't imagining anything. My instincts were right. My feelings were valid. And I refused to be gaslit anymore. Jennifer, Mark's wife, was holding her husband's arm and staring at David with disgust. David, Mark said. What the hell? David ran his hands through his hair. He looked around the room at all the faces staring at him, and I saw something break in his expression. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he said. How was it supposed to happen? I asked. We were going to tell you. After your birthday. We had a plan. You had a plan. I repeated the words slowly. You had a plan for how to tell me that you've been betraying me for 2 years. Maya, please. Let us explain. Explain what? Explain how you fell in love with my best friend? Explain how you moved in together while still living with me? Explain how you used my credit to finance your secret life? Sarah spoke for the first time since admitting the truth. Maya, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. I'm devastated by you. I'm heartbroken by you. But I don't hate you. The words hung in the air. You were my best friend, my childhood friend, I continued. You were the person I told everything to. The person I trusted most in the world. And you used that trust to make me doubt my own reality. Sarah was sobbing now. Not pretty crying. Ugly, desperate sobbing. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. But you did hurt me. Every day for 2 years, you hurt me. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you let me pay for something that was benefiting your secret life with David. Every time you made me feel crazy for noticing things that were actually happening. The room was completely silent except for Sarah's crying. Maya, David said. We fell in love. People can't help who they fall in love with. You're right, I said. You can't help who you fall in love with. But you can help how you handle it. You could have told me the truth 2 years ago. You could have ended things with me before starting things with Sarah. You could have not used my credit to finance your new life. You could have not made me feel insane. Mark was shaking his head. David, this is unforgivable. We were trying to find the right way, David started. There is no right way to do what you did, Jennifer interrupted. There's only the honest way and the coward's way. And you chose to be cowards. I looked around the room at all my friends and family. At all the people who thought they knew our story. Who thought David and I were happy. Who thought Sarah and I were best friends. I wanted all of you to know the truth, I said. Not because I want you to take sides or because I want to humiliate anyone. But because I needed witnesses. I needed people who would remember that this happened. That I didn't imagine it. That I wasn't crazy. Emma put her arm around me. And because, I continued, I wanted to say this publicly, I deserve better. I deserve someone who doesn't lie to me for 2 years. I deserve a friend who doesn't use our friendship to cover up their betrayal. I deserve to have my feelings and perceptions validated instead of being made to feel paranoid. The silence stretched out again. Then Lisa started clapping. Slowly, quietly, but clapping. Then Emma joined her. Then Jennifer. Then Mark. One by one, everyone in the room except David and Sarah started clapping for me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just acknowledgement. Validation. Support. I looked at David and Sarah, both of them standing there looking lost and broken, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. The party ended quickly after that. People didn't know what to do with the information they'd been given. Some came up to hug me before they left. Others just squeezed my hand and said they were sorry. A few shot angry looks at David and Sarah before walking out. Mark lingered to talk to David privately. I heard raised voices from the kitchen, but I didn't try to listen. It wasn't my business anymore. Sarah stood in my living room for a long time after everyone else had gone, just crying and looking at me. Maya, she finally said. I know you probably never want to see me again, but I need you to know. Sarah. I held up my hand. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But definitely not tonight. She nodded and picked up her purse, the purse David had been holding when he walked in. The purse that had given everything away. For what it's worth, she said at the door, our friendship was real. Everything I felt for you was real. I know, I said. That's what makes this so devastating. After she left, it was just David, Emma, and me. David sat on my couch with his head in his hands. I'll move out tomorrow, he said without looking up. You already moved out, I said. 2 years ago. You just left some of your stuff here. He looked up at me then. His eyes were red. Maya, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I'm sorry. For which part? I asked. For falling in love with Sarah? For lying to me? For using my credit? For making me feel crazy? For planning to tell me at my birthday party? We weren't going to tell you at the party. We were going to wait until after. It doesn't matter when you were going to tell me, I said. What matters is that you weren't going to tell me at all if I hadn't figured it out. He didn't argue with that because he couldn't. I'll pay you back, he said. Every penny. I'll take out a loan, David. I sat down across from him. The money doesn't matter. The money was never what this was about. Then what was it about? I thought about that question. What was it about? Love? Trust? Honesty? It was about respect, I said finally. You didn't respect me enough to tell me the truth. You didn't respect me enough to end things cleanly. You didn't respect me enough to let me make my own choices about my own life. Emma was watching from the kitchen doorway, ready to step in if needed. You made decisions for me, I continued. You decided I couldn't handle the truth. You decided what I needed to know and when I needed to know it. You decided to keep me in a relationship that wasn't real because you thought it was better for me. David was crying now too. Quiet tears that he kept wiping away. I thought we could figure it out, he said. I thought maybe there was a way to make this work without anyone getting hurt. But someone was already getting hurt. I was getting hurt. Every day. You just didn't want to see it. You're right, he said. You're absolutely right. We sat in silence for a while. Emma disappeared into the kitchen and started cleaning up party supplies, giving us space. David, I said eventually. Do you love her? He looked up at me, surprised by the question. Do you love Sarah? I repeated. Yes, he said quietly. I do. More than you love me? He hesitated. It's okay, I said. You can tell me the truth. I think I've earned that much. It's different, he said. What I feel for her is different than what I felt for you. Different how? More intense. More consuming. With you, everything was comfortable. Safe. Easy. I nodded. That made sense, actually. And with her? With her, it's like I'm more myself. Like she sees parts of me that I didn't even know existed. I absorbed that information. It hurt, but it also explained things. Then you should be with her, I said. David stared at me. I mean it, I said. You should be with her. But you should do it honestly this time. No more lies. No more deception. No more using other people's money or credit or trust. Maya. I'm not saying this to be noble or generous, I interrupted. I'm saying it because I want to be free of this. I want to be free of you. And I can't be free of you if you're miserable and guilt-ridden and pining for someone else. Emma appeared in the doorway again. David, she said. I think it's time for you to go. He nodded and left. Emma and I spent the next hour cleaning up in silence. We threw away paper plates and plastic cups. We took down streamers and balloons. We packed up leftover food. How do you feel? Emma asked as we folded up the Happy Birthday Maya banner. Empty, I said. But not in a bad way. Like, relieved empty. Like I've been holding my breath for months and I can finally exhale. No regrets about doing it that way? I thought about it. About the look on everyone's faces. About Sarah's tears. About David's shock when he realized everyone already knew. No, I said. No regrets. The next few weeks were strange. People kept reaching out, friends who'd been at the party, friends who'd heard about it secondhand, even people I barely knew who'd somehow gotten the story. Most were supportive. Some were curious. A few were judgmental. You could have handled it privately, my coworker Janet said over lunch. Did you really need to humiliate them like that? I didn't humiliate them, I said. I told the truth. They humiliated themselves. But in front of everyone? Janet, I said, setting down my sandwich. For 2 years, everyone thought they knew my story. They thought David and I were happy. They thought Sarah and I were best friends. They thought we were all normal people living normal lives. That was the lie. What I did at the party was just correct the record. She didn't understand. Some people didn't. They thought I should have been quieter about my pain. More private about my betrayal. More concerned about preserving everyone else's comfort than about vindicating my own truth. But most people got it. Lisa called me the day after the party. I keep thinking about what you said, she told me. About feeling crazy. About doubting your own perceptions. Yeah? I went through something similar with my ex. Not cheating, but he had this way of making me feel like I was overreacting to things that were actually huge problems. Like I was being too sensitive or too dramatic. Gaslighting. Exactly. And I handled it the way everyone says you're supposed to handle it. Privately. Quietly. I never told anyone what was really happening until after we broke up. How did that work out? It didn't. People still think he's this great guy. They still invite him to things. They still act like our breakup was just incompatibility. Like it was mutual. I understood what she was saying. Sometimes, Lisa continued, I wish I'd been braver. Like you were. I wish I'd told people the truth while it was happening instead of protecting his reputation. Mark, David's brother, called me too. I owe you an apology, he said. For what? For not seeing it. Jennifer and I had dinner with you and David just last month, and I had no idea what was happening. I should have noticed something. Mark, there's no way you could have known. They were very good at hiding it. Still. I feel like I failed you somehow. You didn't fail me. The only people who failed me were David and Sarah. How are you doing? Really? I thought about it. How was I doing? Better than I expected, I said honestly. I thought I'd be more devastated. But mostly I just feel free. Free? Like I've been carrying this weight without realizing it. The weight of trying to make sense of things that didn't make sense. Of trying to fix problems that weren't actually problems with our relationship, they were problems with his honesty. Mark was quiet for a moment. For what it's worth, he said, I'm proud of you. For how you handled it. It took guts. Thank you. And Maya? David's always been complicated. Even as kids. He had this way of justifying things to himself. Making excuses for behavior that was just plain wrong. I'm not sure if that makes me feel better or worse. I just want you to know that what he did, it wasn't about you not being enough. It was about him not being brave enough to deal with his own feelings honestly. 3 weeks after my birthday party, I found a letter slipped under my door. It was from Sarah. 5 pages, handwritten, explaining everything. She told me about the first time she and David kissed. It was at my New Year's Eve party the year before last. I'd gone to bed early with a headache, and they'd stayed up cleaning. It just happened, she wrote. I know that sounds like an excuse, but it really did just happen. 1 minute we were talking about you, about how lucky you were to have found each other, and the next minute we were kissing. She told me about the guilt. How she'd planned to tell me the next day, but then David convinced her to wait. Just until they figured out what it meant. Just until they knew if it was real or just a mistake. But the more time we spent together, the more real it became, she wrote. And the harder it became to tell you. Because telling you would mean losing you, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. She told me about the apartment. How David had suggested it as a temporary solution. Somewhere they could go to figure things out without lying to me every time they wanted to see each other. I know how that sounds, she wrote. I know it sounds like we were just making it easier to deceive you. And maybe we were. But at the time, it felt like we were trying to protect you. She told me about the money. How David had convinced her that borrowing from me was temporary. That he would pay it back before I ever noticed. I should have said no, she wrote. I should have insisted we find another way. But I was so desperate to make this work, to find a way to be with him without destroying you, that I went along with things I knew were wrong. She told me about the emails I'd found. About their conversations about telling me the truth. We talked about it constantly, she wrote. How to tell you, when to tell you, whether we even had the right to be together if it meant hurting you this much. David thought we should wait until we were sure about our feelings. I thought we should tell you immediately, even if it meant ending things between us. She told me about the weeks leading up to my birthday party. I kept trying to convince David that we needed to tell you before the party, she wrote. I knew you were planning something big, and I had this terrible feeling that waiting any longer would make everything worse. But David kept saying he needed more time to figure out how to minimize the damage. She told me about the day of the party itself. I almost didn't come, she wrote. I sat in my car outside your building for 20 minutes, trying to work up the courage to walk away. To disappear from your life without an explanation rather than face you one more time knowing what I was hiding. She told me about watching David walk into the party with her purse. I knew it was over the moment I saw him, she wrote. I knew you'd figure it out. And I was terrified, but I was also relieved. Because I was so tired of lying to you. So tired of pretending. The last page was an apology. Not just for the betrayal, but for all the smaller betrayals that had led up to it. I'm sorry for every time I let you doubt yourself, she wrote. I'm sorry for every time I watched you struggle with feelings you couldn't explain and didn't offer you the explanation you deserved. I'm sorry for using our friendship as cover for deception. I'm sorry for making you feel crazy when you were actually seeing clearly. At the bottom of the letter, she'd written. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this whole letter. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did to you. I understand why you did what you did at the party. And I understand why you can't have me in your life anymore. I'm sorry, Maya. For all of it. You deserved so much better from both of us. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a box with all the other evidence I'd collected. Not because I wanted to keep torturing myself with it, but because I wanted to remember. I wanted to remember that my instincts had been right. That my feelings had been valid. That I hadn't been crazy or paranoid or oversensitive. I wanted to remember that sometimes the people who love you can still betray you. And that surviving betrayal doesn't require you to minimize it or excuse it or handle it quietly. Sometimes surviving betrayal requires you to stand up in a room full of people and say, this happened to me. This is real. And I deserve better. I didn't respond to Sarah's letter. There was nothing to say. David moved out completely within a week. Emma supervised, making sure he only took things that actually belonged to him. He left the key on my kitchen counter along with a check for $3,000, partial payment toward what he owed me. I cashed the check and put the money toward first month's rent on a new apartment. I didn't need to move, the lease was in my name anyway, but I wanted to. I wanted to start fresh somewhere that didn't smell like his cologne or echo with memories of her laugh. The new place was smaller but brighter. It had big windows and hardwood floors and a kitchen I could actually afford to cook in. Emma helped me paint the bedroom a soft yellow, nothing like the blue David and I had talked about. My coworkers threw me a housewarming party. Small, simple, just pizza and wine and people who actually knew the real story of my life. It's weird, I told Emma as we sat on my new couch, looking around at my new living room. I thought I'd be sadder. Are you not sad? I am sad. But not about losing David. I'm sad about losing the person I thought he was. And I'm sad about losing Sarah. The Sarah I thought I knew. That's different. Yeah. It is. I'd been thinking a lot about grief. About how you can grieve people who are still alive. People who were never who you thought they were in the first place. Do you miss them? Emma asked. I miss the versions of them that existed in my head, I said. The David who was honest and faithful. The Sarah who was actually my best friend. But those people were never real. So what now? Now I figure out who I am when I'm not being lied to. 6 months after my birthday party, I ran into Sarah at the grocery store. She looked different. Thinner. Her hair was shorter, and she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked like someone who'd been having trouble sleeping. We saw each other at the same time, both of us reaching for apples. For a moment, we just stood there, staring. Maya, she said quietly. Sarah. How are you? I considered the question. How was I? I'm good, I said, and realized I meant it. I'm really good. She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I'm glad, she said. I mean that. I'm glad you're okay. How are you? I asked, surprising myself. She paused, looking for the right word. I'm figuring things out. And David? It's complicated. I waited for her to elaborate, but she didn't. Sarah, I said after a moment. I got your letter. Her face went pale. I never responded because I didn't know what to say. But I want you to know, I read it. All of it. And thank you. For explaining. It didn't change anything, but it helped me understand. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Maya, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but, do you think there's any chance we could ever? No, I said gently. There's not. She absorbed that, her face crumpling slightly. I understand, she said. It's not about punishment, I said. It's about protection. I can't have people in my life who are capable of lying to me that completely. Even if they feel bad about it afterward. I know, she whispered. I know. We stood there for another moment, two people who used to know each other, who used to be important to each other, who were now strangers. I hope you figure it out, I said. Whatever's complicated with David. I hope you both figure it out. Thank you, she said. That's more generous than I deserve. It's not about what you deserve, I said. It's about what I need. And I need to be able to wish you well and walk away. So I did. I walked away. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't look back. A year after my birthday party, I was a different person. Not completely different. I still taught 4th grade. I still painted on weekends. I still called my sister every Sunday and complained about my mother's unsolicited advice. But I was different in the ways that mattered. I trusted my instincts now. When something felt off, I paid attention to that feeling instead of explaining it away. When someone's words didn't match their actions, I noticed. When people tried to make me doubt my own perceptions, I held firm. I was also more selective about who I let close to me. Not in a paranoid way, but in a self-protective way. I'd learned the difference between being open and being naive. I started dating again, but slowly. Carefully. The first few guys I went out with seemed put off by my directness. By my questions about their previous relationships, their living situations, their financial independence. You're very thorough, one of them said after I'd asked about his last breakup. Yes, I said. I am. He didn't call again, which was fine with me. Then I met James. James was a librarian. He was quiet and thoughtful and had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. On our 3rd date, when I started my usual background questions, he laughed. You're vetting me, he said. Yes, I said, preparing for him to be offended. Good, he said. That's smart. I'd be worried about someone who didn't vet after being hurt. You know about that? Emma mentioned it when she set us up. Not the details, just that you'd been through something difficult. I looked at him across the restaurant table, this man who thought my caution was smart instead of excessive. What else did Emma tell you? I asked. That you're the strongest person she knows. That you handled a terrible situation with more grace than most people could manage. And that anyone who gets to be with you now is incredibly lucky. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were good tears. Grateful tears. She's biased, I said. Maybe. But I don't think she's wrong. 18 months after my birthday party, I threw another party. It was for my promotion at work. I'd been made head of the 4th grade team, but really it was just an excuse to celebrate how good my life had become. The guest list was smaller this time. Carefully curated. People who knew the real me. People who'd proven themselves trustworthy. People who'd been there during the hard times and were still there for the good times. Emma came, of course. Lisa and her husband. My new coworkers. James, who'd become my boyfriend 6 months earlier and who fit into my life like he'd always been there. Mark and Jennifer came too. We'd stayed in touch after everything with David, and they'd become real friends instead of just relatives by association. I'm proud of you, Jennifer said as she helped me arrange flowers in the kitchen. Look at this life you built. I looked around my apartment. At the artwork on the walls that I'd chosen myself. At the furniture that reflected my taste instead of compromises. At the bookshelves full of books I actually wanted to read. It's a good life, I agreed. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The old life? I thought about it. Did I miss the comfort of a long relationship? The familiarity of established routines? The feeling of being part of an established couple? I miss feeling safe, I said finally. But I don't miss the illusion of safety. If that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. That night, as people were leaving, James stayed to help clean up. Good party, he said, loading glasses into the dishwasher. Thank you. I'm glad you were here. Me too. He paused in his cleaning. Maya, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever worry that what happened with David and Sarah made you too cautious? Too closed off? I considered the question. It was something I'd wondered about myself. Sometimes, I said. But then I think about what my life was like when I was too trusting. When I ignored red flags because I wanted to believe the best about people. And I realize that being cautious isn't the same as being closed off. I'm still open to love. I'm still open to friendship. I'm still open to trust. I'm just more intentional about who I give those things to. James nodded. That makes sense. Why do you ask? He smiled, looking suddenly nervous. Because I'm falling in love with you. And I want to make sure you're open to falling in love back. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Fear and joy and hope all tangled together. I am, I said. Open to it, I mean. Good, he said. Because I plan to earn it. The proper way. With honesty and consistency and respect. Those are my favorite ways to be loved, I said. He laughed and kissed me, and I kissed him back, and I thought about how different this felt from everything that had come before. This felt real. This felt safe. This felt like something I could trust. I never saw David again after he moved out. I heard through Mark that he and Sarah had broken up about a year after my birthday party. That they'd tried to make it work but couldn't get past the guilt and the complications and the way their relationship had been built on deception from the very beginning. I heard that David moved to another city. That Sarah stayed in town but changed jobs. That they were both doing okay, separately, working on themselves. I was glad to hear they were okay. Not because I forgave them, forgiveness was still a work in progress, but because I'd learned that holding on to anger was like trying to carry a boulder. Eventually, you have to put it down, not because the boulder deserves to be put down, but because your arms deserve to be free. James and I got engaged on the 3-year anniversary of my birthday party. He proposed in my living room, the same room where I'd stood up and told the truth about my life. The same room where I'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to protect other people from the consequences of their own actions. Is it weird? He asked after I said yes, after we'd called Emma and my parents and celebrated with champagne. Getting engaged in the same place where your last relationship ended? No, I said, looking around the room that had seen so much pain and now held so much joy. It feels right. Like I'm reclaiming this space. Like I'm proving that life goes on after betrayal. That good things can still happen in places where bad things happened. I love that, he said. Plus, I added, this is where I learned to stand up for myself. Where I learned to trust my own voice. Those are pretty good lessons to carry into a marriage. The wedding was small. Intimate. Honest. Everything my relationship with David had never been. Emma was my maid of honor. In her speech at the reception, she said something that stayed with me. 3 years ago, Maya threw a birthday party that changed her life. Not because of what other people did to her that night, but because of what she chose to do for herself. She chose truth over comfort. She chose self-respect over keeping the peace. She chose her own reality over other people's version of her story. She raised her glass. To Maya, who taught all of us that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone else's lies. And to James, who gets to love the woman she became because she was brave enough to demand the truth. Later that night, after all the guests had gone home, James and I sat on the porch of the venue, still in our wedding clothes, talking about everything and nothing. Do you think they know? He asked. David and Sarah? Do you think they know you got married? Probably, I said. It's a small town. Word gets around. How does that feel? I thought about it. How did it feel to know that the people who'd betrayed me might know I was happy? That I'd found love again? That their lies hadn't destroyed me? It feels like justice, I said finally. Not revenge. Justice. What's the difference? Revenge is about making them pay. Justice is about proving that their actions didn't define my story. That I got to write the next chapter myself. James squeezed my hand. I like your next chapter. Me too, I said. Me too. As we sat there in the darkness, I thought about that night 3 years ago. About standing in my living room, heart pounding, telling the truth to a room full of people I loved. About the moment David walked in holding Sarah's purse and everything became clear. I thought about how terrifying it had been to speak my truth out loud. How much courage it had taken to stop protecting people who weren't protecting me. And I thought about how that moment, that terrible, necessary moment, had led me here. To this porch, with this man, wearing this dress, living this life that I'd built from scratch after my old life crumbled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well. Living honestly. Living with the kind of love that doesn't require you to doubt your own perceptions or carry other people's secrets. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let other people's choices become your story. That night, 3 years ago, I learned that I was the author of my own life. That I got to decide which chapters to keep and which to close. That I got to choose who belonged in my story and who had forfeited their place. It was the best birthday gift I ever gave myself, the gift of my own truth, spoken out loud, witnessed by people who loved me. And everything good that came after started with that moment of courage. Everything good started with refusing to protect people from the truth of what they'd done. Everything good started with me, standing in my living room, finally trusting my own voice.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.